Hello, my fellow gnomes, and welcome to episode 8 of our tower defense series. And as you may notice over here in the corner of the map, a new object has appeared. It's not very pretty, but it's a basic little base I've put together. You'll see it's sort of a little transparent odd part here, and they can sort of wander into this cave, and this is where the final waypoint is that all these zombies can go into. And at the moment, they're just getting deleted. What we want to happen is you want to set up a health system for our base so that whenever a mob reaches the end, it's going to damage our base, and if our base gets too damaged, then it's going to be ripperoni and game over for us. But before we do that, I'm just going to stop the game. And there's one little correction I need to make from the previous video actually, which is our local script, our animation script. So I'm going to open that up. And if you remember, we had this set animation function. And this is called when we add in a new object, whether it's a tower or a mob. And we also call it when we want to play, well, any animation, but this is usually for an attack. Now, the problem at the moment is this set animation is being called over here to grab the animation track. But it's creating a brand new animation every time. So if we're playing a attack animation, it's going to load one in every time rather than just reusing the ones it's already loaded. So I'll give you a quick example. You don't have to type this in. This is just an example. So if I say wanted to do this 300 times and I wanted to play the attack animation, and I'll open up my output so you can see the problem. If I click play here, and then I spawn in a guy over here, it's going to try and play it a load of times, and then we'll see down the output we've got this warning that's appeared. Animation track limit of 256 tracks reached for one animator exceeded. Right, you can't have more than 256 tracks loaded in, and it's just bad efficiency anyway to be loading it in multiple times. So what we want to do instead is in this set animation function, before we just load in a brand new one, instead, once we've checked there's an animation object, we're going to add in a new line down here after we've got the animator, and we're going to check if there's any tracks that are playing. So local playing tracks equals, and then we can get the animator and call the function get playing animation tracks. And then once we've done that, we can leap through all of the tracks for track in pairs, and then use that playing tracks table we've just got, and we'll check if the track.name is equal to the anim name that they have requested. Then, so that means that the animation they've requested to play is actually already been loaded in, so then we can just return that track. But otherwise, then we will load in a new one and we'll return that. So that's just a small little modification to our code. But now, if I was to try and play 300 animations at once, we won't get that warning anymore. Once I place it, let's see. There we go, no warning. Obviously, he can't really play 300 at once anyway, because there is a slight pause between all of them, and we haven't coded any of that. But there we go, that fixes that. But now, let's close the animation script and go on to our base. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a new module script. So in server script service, in our main script, we currently have a mob and a tower module. We're going to add in a brand new module script, and we're going to call this base. And then, of course, inside here, we'll rename it from module to base and base. And just like in our mob script, right, we're not going to have a spawning function because in our game world, we've actually already got the base. We don't need to add it in. But I want to have a function to sort of set it up, configure it all. So I'm going to create a function. We'll say function base dot, let's call it setup. That will do. And then inside of here, we're going to then start to configure things. But before we do any more inside of this module script, let's actually create a Billboard GUI that we can use. So with this base selected, you can see it's just inside my map, and I've just a model named base. I'm going to add in a Billboard Gui. And then once I've done that, inside of this, I'm going to add in a frame. And then I'm going to click the Billboard GUI and I'm going to enable the always on top feature. So once I tick that, then my frame is going to become visible. So you can see it right there. This size, it's what? 200 pixels by 50. We might change that just to be 40 high. Probably doesn't need to be quite so tall. All of these other properties, the max distance, we might change that just down to 100. Even though the character's not really going to be able to ever zoom out this far, we don't really want it to be that visible that far away anyway. And we'll rename it from Billboard GUI to Health GUI, so we know what it is. And then the frame, which automatically the size is 100 by 100 pixels. We don't want it to be like that. So we want this to be all the way across. So the size will be 1, 0, comma, and then we'll put 0.5, 0.5 and 0. So that's going to make it all the way across on the x-axis, but only half the way tall on the y-axis. The reason there's two sets of numbers is because the second one is pixel values. But because we've already defined our pixel values here, we don't need to do it again. We can just do it relative to the top container. So we're going to name this one, we'll name this one max health. And we're going to make the background color equal to red. Okay. And then we're going to duplicate this. And then we're going to call this one current health. And this one is going to be colored green. So let's see, something like that. That looks quite nice. And now I'd just like to add in some text as well. So I'm going to click the health GUI, add in a text label. Again, it gives it a default size, which I don't want. So I want it to be the same size as these. So I can click it there, Control C, click here on size again, and paste it in. So it'll be the same size. I don't want it to have a white background. So I'm going to disable that. Set the background transparency to 1. And the text, how about we call it title. And then the text, we will just set to base. And font, let's choose a font. I think Oswald is quite a nice font. And we'll set the text color to be white. And we'll enable text scale, so it makes it a little bit bigger. We probably don't want the text on top of the health bar though. I'm going to want it above. So instead, I'm going to click both max health and current health together. Click and control click. And then for their position, I want to move it half the way down. So 0, 0, and then I'm going to put 0.50. And once we do that, then it's going to sit below the base. Okay. So there we go. We've got our little health bar. We might not want it to be kind of in the middle of the base. So if we want it to be slightly above, we can click the billboard and put the extents offset world space 0, 1, 0. So it's going to be 1 higher on the y-axis. So it's going to sit slightly above it. I think that looks a little bit better. So what we're going to want to do with this health bar is we're going to want to change the size of the current health, the green bar, to be a little bit smaller when it takes damage. So instead of being 1 across, it would be something like 0.7. And then we would see that red beneath it of the max health. And that would be our visual display of the health. But at the outset, it's going to be 1. So it's going to be full health. And we're going to control the rest of it from our script. So it's time now to return to our base module script. Now our base module script is going to work a little bit differently to our mob script, for example, because in here we have multiple mobs, whereas for our base script, we're only going to have one base. So what we can actually do is we can put information about the base inside of our table here. So I can say base.model, and I'll make that equal to, well, it's going to be inside of the map, isn't it? We've already got the map variable in our main script. So what I might just do is I'll set up a parameter for the function. called map. And then I can just say map wait for child and get the base, because it's the base model is directly inside of my map, we can see. So all I'm essentially doing here is inside of the table, I'm creating a new value called model and making this equal to the map's base. And then once we've done that, we're going to create some variables for the health. So that should be a second parameter of the function, map and health. So whatever they want the base's health to start off as. So we'll set base dot current health. Just like a humanoid, we're going to have a health and a max health. So the current health is going to be equal to whatever they set. And of course, the max health is going to be equal to the same thing as well. Because at the start of the game, if we give it 500 health, then it's going to be the same. And then gradually this current health property is going to reduce as the game progresses. So once we've done that, then we're going to have a second function down here. And this second function is going to update that health bar. So we call this base.update health. And this is going to take a parameter of damage, right? Whatever damage is want to be shelled out. And it's going to be optional. So we'll say if damage, it could be nil. They don't have to provide it. So if there is a damage value, then, and we'll say base.current health minus equals. So whatever the current value of this is, minus the value of the damage variable. So that's some of our template code setup. Now we just need to access that GUI that we created. So remember, it's inside of the base and it's called health GUI. So I can say, and create a variable to get us straight to the GUI. GUI equals, and that'd be base dot model. Remember, we created that just up here. And because we've created this value, this variable, inside of the base table, we can actually access it from anywhere within the script. So base.model, and then its name is health GUI, like that. And then we want to calculate the width of the current health frame relative to the max health and the current health values. So we'll create local percent, right? A percentage amount. And that'll be equal to the base dot its current health divided by the base dot max health. So that'll give us a relative value that we can use. So once I've created that percent variable, I then need to actually use it, don't I? So we'll set the GUI dot the current health. So remember, that's that green bar we talked about, that green frame. And we change its size. And the size is equal to a udim2, two-dimensional, rather than a three-dimensional, like a vector 3, dot new. And the values are percent, 0, 1, and 0. Because remember, currently, the size of it is 1, 0, 0.50. So let's go back into our main script and actually access this module script that we've just created. So that's this one here. And then right at the top with these other module scripts, we're going to need to create a new line. So why not put it at the very top? Local, and this is base equals require. And of course it's inside of it. So we just put script.base. And then we can access the functions of it. So we can say base.setup. We're going to want to do this, of course, before our wave runs. And remember, we need to give it the parameters. So the first parameter was the map object. And the second was how much health we want to give it. So I just used the map variable we've already got. And then for the second one, how much health I want to give it. I think we'll do 500 health to start off with. So let's click, actually, before we test it out, let's try waiting, pass.wait for 2 seconds. and then we'll say base.update health, and we'll say how much health we want to take away. So this, I'm just going to take away 50 health. And we should see after 2 seconds, there we go, it's dropped. So it's taken 50 away from it. And it'd be quite nice if we could maybe see how much damage it had taken. So let's hit stop. And once we've done that, let's hit GUI dot, and we're going to access that title text label we created. So GUI.title.text. And we'll set that equal to base, colon, double quotes, and then we'll use a dot dot, which allows us to combine 2 strings together. So we're going to add on the base dot its current health, whatever the value of that is, and then we'll put dot dot, concatenate another string. We'll just use the divide, the slash. Okay, so we're just saying it's out of, and then concatenate again, base dot max health. And so that will combine a nice little string for us together. And so if we run that, we should then see on the text base, and then once it's taken the damage, it says 450 out of 500. And in fact, we probably want that text to be there straight away. So let's call this update health function from the setup function. There we go. Like so. So then it'll update. And in fact, just to be consistent, I'm going to change my update health from beginning with a lowercase u to an uppercase. It's always good to be consistent with your naming systems. So capital S for setup, capital U for update. So now when we run, we should see it already says 500 out of 500. And we've got an error there because in our main script, we need to change that to a capital U as well, don't we? There we go. So now we've got that tested and working, let's actually have that effect take place when one of our mobs reaches the end of the course. So how we're going to do this is in our mob script, if you remember, we just destroy the mob once they've made their way through all of the waypoints. Well, instead of that, we want to, we still want to destroy the mob, but we want to damage them afterwards, damage the base. So in order to communicate between our mob script and our base script, I'm going to use something called a bindable event. Now, you might remember we've already used some remote events. We've got them in replicated storage, these remote events. So if you think of that as like firing some information between the server and the client, well, a bindable event is sort of like firing up a flare gun that can only be seen on the server. So in server storage, we've already got that mobs folder. We're going to add in a new folder, and we're going to call this bindables. And so these are a bit like a remote event, but they're only used on the server, and they allow different scripts to communicate with each other or let them know when something has happened. So we're going to create one, and we'll call this damage base, shall we call it? Or maybe we should call it update, seeing as our function's called update health. Let's call our bindable event update base health. And then, oh, I need the T in there. There we go. And I'm going to add another bindable so that we've got it ready. And I'm going to call this one a game over. We'll use that in a minute. But let's get this first bindable working. So inside of our base module script, we're now going to need some variables to access this folder and those bindables. So let's create one for the server storage first of all. Server storage equals game get service server storage. And then we're going to need the bindables folder. So local bindables equals server storage, wait for child, bindables. And then we can get that update base health event. So local update base health event. And we'll set that equal to bindables, wait for child, and its name, which is update base health. So now we can react whenever this event is fired. So we'll put this right at the bottom of our script. and we say update base health event dot event, and then we can connect it to the function that we've got, our update health function. So base dot update health, and this function will run whenever this event is fired. So now let's copy the variables that we just created, and we'll head into our mob script, and we'll put them at the top, although we'll take these, and so we'll keep our services together, and then below the services we can add the variables for the bindables and the event that we need. And so now after we destroy the mob, because they've reached the end, we're going to take that event and we're going to say fire. And remember, we actually have a parameter to the function, the update health function, of damage. And that's the information we want to send, how much damage to give. Now, you can program this however you like, but I think what I'm going to do is send however much health the mob has left. So if there's a boss and he has 100 health, then obviously he's going to do a lot more damage than a little zombie that only has 10. So to do that, I'm going to use this humanoid variable, and I'm going to fire the humanoid dot health. And that's all I need to say. And so now I think if we run the game, we should see this in action. So I'm going to click play, and we can see our health is set up, and it's already taken some damage. That's just from our testing script in the main. But we'll wait for these zombies to get all the way around. And here they go, they're almost here. And we can see that damage has been taken. So it's now down to 420 out of 500. So it's going to be able to take quite a few zombies. So you might want to tweak this a little bit, make it a bit lower to make the game harder, make it higher. But we're going to keep that as 500 for now. Now, obviously, if it reaches 0, nothing's going to happen. The zombies are going to keep coming, and the game's not going to stop. I'll just show you this quickly. We can get rid of this in our main script. That was just when we were testing. Or in fact, let's set it. Let's take away 500 health. So we can just see if I was to do that, after 2 seconds, it would go to 0, but the zombies are going to keep coming. So we need a way to stop the game. So in order to do that, we can delete this now. And we're going to use that bindable we created called game over. So inside of our base module script, at the very top, we'll create a variable for it. So local game over event, and that's going to be in the bindables folder, and we're going to wait for a child for that game over event that we created. And then once we've got the variable for it, all we want to do is whenever we update the health, we're going to want to check its value. So let's do it on this line here. So we're going to check if the base dot its current health is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to want to game over, aren't we? So game over, fire. And, oh, I've got a capital I, change that to lowercase. And if it's game over, then I don't really want to be updating this text necessarily. So I'm just going to set the GUI.title.text to be equal to base destroyed, something like that. And then otherwise else, if we've just taken a bit of damage, then we will display it like we were doing before. And so that's the event firing. Now we just need to receive this bindable event. So let's copy these, all of these variables, copy all of these, and head into our main script, because this is where all the central logic for our game is going on. We've got this rather messy wave script here. We maybe will change that later on. But for now, at the top of the script, we'll paste in all of those values we created. We don't actually need the update health event here, so we can get rid of that line. But we do need the bindables folder and the game over event. And then I'm going to create a sort of control variable. So down here, create a variable called local game over. And initially, this is of course going to be set to false. But once the game's running, so we're going to check. So game over event and dot event. So if it's fired, we're going to connect it to a function. And all this function is going to do, whenever it's fired, we'll set game over. That control variable we just created, we're going to set that to true. Okay? And then we're just going to need to check the value of this variable. So let's go down here to our repeat loop. Now, if the game is over because the base has been destroyed, then we're not really interested if there's any mobs alive or not anymore. So let's change this to be if we'll all repeat until there's no children, or we just add this on the end, or game over, if game over is true. So that's just a secondary condition. And then below that, we'll say if game over is true, then, and we're going to want to exit out of this entire for loop because we don't want to keep producing more waves. We just want to stop all of this. So we're just going to print out game over, noob. Then we will break. And the break word ensures that we break out of this loop. So let's give this a run and see how things are working for us. In fact, we won't just run the game. Why not play it? So we've got a few zombies coming towards us. I'm not going to bother placing down any towers just yet. I want to get a bit of damage to our base and just see how things are going for us. Oh no, no, quick, no. Okay, so we're slowly losing health, and then I think a big wave is going to come here. So we can see our base health is working nicely so far. I'm going to add in one tower for good measure, but I think it's a bit late because there we go, base has been destroyed. We see in the output it says game over noob, and I've allowed these mobs to keep coming. I think it sort of looks quite good to keep an onslaught. If you wanted, you could head into your mob spawn function and actually wait for that bindable event and stop spawning them if you didn't want that. But I think it looks kind of interesting. And we see now we've reached that final wave. It's not going to start wave 5. That's it. It's going to stop the game here. So there we go. Our base has been well and truly destroyed. We've reached the end of the waves. And we have reached the end of this episode. Now, obviously, in future, we're going to have something actually happen when the base is destroyed. But this kind of nicely rounds off the rounds, at least. And we'll be continuing to work on our tower defense game. Hopefully, yours is coming on nicely too. So thank you very much for watching. If you've found this helpful, then why not leave a like and even consider subscribing. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye!